Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 101. I hope that you've all had a fantastic week. Thank you so much for all of your messages of congratulations on my 100th episode and for everybody that tuned into that particular podcast. The last episode had a record number of downloads in a week, so that was very exciting. Now, before I start today, I do just want to address something that some of you may have seen on my Instagram recently. This is not something I would normally do, but I feel like I need to clear this up. So when I posted the last episode, I answered a question that someone had asked me using my own personal experiences to help me do that, because that's what I like to do. I like to keep it real and show you all the parts of my life and use my experiences to help others. Now, I felt that I had been very reserved. I left a lot out about what else had been said, but apparently some people were not very happy with what I had said. So I received several missed calls and messages off my ex asking me that I take the episode down because he felt that I had aired his dirty laundry by relaying some of the things that he'd said about his girlfriend, bearing in mind that this was a couple of years ago now. This was not recently. This was at the beginning. And he felt that that wasn't too much to ask me to do that. So I definitely understand why he wouldn't want me to talk about him or talk about any of the things that he said. I get it. And it would be never my intention to hurt someone on purpose with the things that I talk about on the podcast. That is not the vibe at all, as I hope you all know. So I want to clear up why I said those things. Sometimes in order for me to make a point that I'm talking about and to help someone, I have to talk about things that have happened in my experience, and that was one of those times because it was in the context of what I had been asked, and it was a very small part of the answer that I gave. Having said that, I would like to make a public apology to my ex if I have in any way led you to believe that I give a single fuck what you think I should or shouldn't include in my podcast after the ways that I have protected you from the shit that you had coming. I'm also really sorry that I have accidentally conditioned you to believe that your actions have no consequences. That is definitely on me for the way that I was so incredibly patient with you. And finally, I'm so sorry that the version of me who you knew with no boundaries, that allowed myself to be an emotional crutch for you, despite you repeatedly breaking my heart in many creative ways, no longer exists in any form. And obviously, I have not made that fucking clear. So if you are still feeling like life is unfair to you in some way, all I can suggest is that you work hard for over 2 years, to build yourself a global podcast audience so that you can then tell your side of the story. That's my only suggestion. Now, I am not about the drama. I do not like to speak about things like this, especially in my podcast. And I want it to be clear that I really do wish the best for everyone, no matter what, including him. I don't want anyone to suffer in any way. But you have to understand that I have built my life back up from the ground, and understandably, I have very strong boundaries now, and I value the peaceful life that I have created for myself, and I will protect that peace at all costs, which sometimes requires me to tell people to fucking jog on, and now is one of those times, because honestly, I have not even got a midge's dick of patience left for the sheer audacity of men, particularly that one. So now that that's cleared up, that's the end of that. Let's move on to today's topic, which is one of my favourite things to talk about. So I am going to be talking about building a really strong self-concept so that, one, you never attract another dickhead into your life ever again, and two, you become a magnet for your desires. So let's start off talking about what self-concept actually is. Your self-concept is what you believe to be true about yourself. So everything that you are experiencing in your life, including the perceived negative things, are as a result of these beliefs that you are holding about yourself. So if you want something in your experience to change or to be different, then you first have to change the concept of yourself to match that desired outcome. So self-concept is just how you view yourself and what you believe is normal for you. And that is going to reflect out into your 3D reality, because nothing outside of you exists. All circumstances in your life are your consciousness pushed out of you for you to see. You're the one creating them, which is sometimes a difficult pill to swallow. And this is why I am always harping on about not reacting to undesired circumstances as much as possible, although I did, clearly. We all do occasionally. But it's because if you want something to be different, it has to be changed on the inside, not on the outside. Life is a mirror, and if that is a difficult concept for you to accept or to understand, think of it like this. If you were sitting in a restaurant having just finished your dessert, let's say you've had a chocolate fudge cake, and someone at the table told you that you had chocolate all around your gob, you would go to the bathroom to sort that out. Now, you can't see your own face, can you? You never can see your own face with your own eyes. So you would then look in the mirror and wipe the chocolate off your own face in order to see a change in the mirror's reflection. What you wouldn't do is start reaching forward to the mirror and wiping the reflection to try and get the chocolate off your face. It wouldn't make sense and it just wouldn't work. That is the same with any circumstances in your life. Your self-concept is your face and your circumstances are the mirror, which I think is quite an empowering thing to know, because although it requires you to accept that you have created anything that you don't really want and the circumstances that you're not enjoying, it also stops you from feeling like you're just the victim of those circumstances. So you might not like what you've created, but by it showing up in your 3D reality, you're given the opportunity to see which parts of your self-concept need working on from the inside. Reality is malleable, it's not fixed. You can change it at any time through developing beliefs about yourself that serve you better. So again, like I mentioned last week, if you had created something out of Play-Doh, you wouldn't look at it and think, oh, I don't like that, it's shit, I'm stuck with it, and get annoyed and upset and angry and feel like you're stuck with that thing that you've created. You would just scrunch it back up and make something new. And that's the same process. You get rid of that old belief and you replace it with a new one in order to see something that you prefer. But what we often do instead is we try and wipe the mirror, and that doesn't create the results that we want. And by wiping the mirror, what I mean is we try and manipulate things and force things in the 3D, and that just simply won't work. You might see a very short-term change in a situation, but ultimately it's just going to go back to how it was before, because you've not changed the concepts of yourself that is creating that outcome in your 3D reality. So now I'm just going to briefly talk about a few examples of how having a self-concept that isn't serving you might be manifesting in your reality. And I'll start with an example from last week's episode. I mentioned in there that somebody had asked me a question about, did they have to just accept that things weren't going how they wanted them to go regarding something in their business. They'd created an online program and they weren't having the results that they'd hoped for. And since then, that person has taken on board what I said in that last podcast episode and has messaged me to celebrate some wins. She's made 2 sales and feels like things are shifting. And that just goes to show how quickly it can change. The circumstances can change like that as soon as you shift your self-concept about them. Now, that belief that was underlying in that particular example was the belief that I am always rejected, which was coming out in the way that this person was presenting this amazing offer that they had, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with the offer. It was fantastic. They were promoting it. They were doing all of the things, all of the strategy of having an online business, and not seeing the results. And now that they've started to shift that belief that actually that's not true, and they're no longer holding on to the belief that they are rejected, they are not being rejected when they're offering the services anymore. So if you have a business and you feel like you are not getting the sales that you want. So I've had a client recently who had a very successful business online, wasn't necessarily just the main business, he had a couple of other things going on. And then they felt like the stuff to do with COVID and all of that, those circumstances had impacted that. So they developed this belief that people didn't have the money to buy things. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. You can develop the concept, which is still a part of yourself, that there are lots of people who have got lots of money to spend on your services, and that's still a part of your self-concept. And that will then reflect out into the 3D. So let's talk about another thing that will affect everybody's life at some point, and that is relationships. So if your self-concept is not serving you, if you're holding on to beliefs that are not serving you, then you are going to attract the type of person who has not healed from their own stuff, who will use you in some way, who will treat you in the way that you believe subconsciously you deserve to be treated. Now, that is a very difficult thing for people to accept, but that is the case because everything in your experience, including the people that you interact with, are reacting to your self-concept. That's what they're doing. They have no choice but to reflect that self-concept back to you. So, for example, if you seem to always attract partners who cheat on you, then you must have some kind of underlying belief in your subconscious that you might not even be aware of at the moment that attracts that type of person, because they have to reflect your beliefs. So that belief could be that I'm not good enough, that I am less than in some way. And I'm speaking, dare I say it, from experience, because I have done that in the past now. I don't attract those same types of people anymore because my self-concept is really fucking good now, because I have worked on it and I've made sure that it's strong and that it serves me. So if you find that you are attracting, and it could be anything, it could be any kind of relationship that you just feel like this is not a good relationship, that's because you hold some beliefs that say this is what you deserve and this is all you can have and this is what's normal for you. So when you switch those beliefs and you build a really strong self-concept that puts you on the pedestal, that makes you the prize, that reminds you constantly that you are a person who is of high value and who deserves an equally high value person to be in a relationship with, that is what you will attract. That is the only way to experience that outcome. And that's why I personally believe that it is really, really important that if you have come out of a relationship that was not right or something like that was going on, that you take the time to heal from that and to process it and to build your self-concept back up and to make those changes within. Because if you don't, you will continue to attract people who reflect your self-concept back to you, and that can take many different forms that I won't go into, but that is what you will get. You see it all the time. People get out of a relationship where they've experienced some sort of damage or they've developed certain beliefs about themselves, and then because they don't want to be on their own, they will jump into another relationship, and that person has no choice but to reflect their own self-concept back to them. And people make this mistake over and over again. It's so important that if you have come out of a relationship, that before you go into another one, You make sure that you've identified those beliefs that you're holding in your subconscious, which are creating that version of events or another version that's just as bad. So, yeah, that's very important. Okay, so we have all got a inner critic and an inner cheerleader. And the way that you can distinguish whether or not your self-concept is serving you or is limiting you is which one is louder, because we have both. Like, nobody's not got an inner critic, but it's which one are you listening to, which one is shouting louder, and which one is driving you to take action. If you have an inner critic that is talking very loudly to you and drowning out the cheerleader and constantly saying things to yourself that are not very supportive and are not creating a really strong sense of worth, then that is going to result in you taking action that is damaging, allowing people and allowing situations to come up which are less than what you really deserve, because you have come to the conclusion that it is normal for you to be mistreated in some way, or it is normal for you to not do well in business, or it's normal for you to, I don't know, be unhealthy, or it's normal for you to not have enough money. So all of these things are as a result of that inner critic being loud and creating a poor self-concept. And you have allowed it to become normal for you to experience those things. So when we're manifesting something, we have to make it normal. And I don't want to go too much on a tangent on this one because I feel like this is a separate episode. But when we're talking about living in the vision, which is something that I am always going on about, it's not living in the moment that it happens. So let's say you were, I don't know if I'm just going to totally go off on one here, just stay with me for a minute. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you had a vision where you were working in your dream job, you wouldn't be constantly trying to stay in the state of the moment that you find out that job, because that's not what's normal. If you had that job, that's that moment of fleeting excitement where you're like, woo, I've got the job, how exciting. But that isn't sustainable for a long time. So living in the vision means, of course, you've got the job. It's totally normal. You've worked there for a year. This is just what your life's like. Does that make sense? So when you live in the vision, you have to make sure that you are at the end, because that's what will allow it to come in, being normal. So it's great to visualize those moments where something exciting happens, but in order to actually see it manifest and know that it's already done and step into alignment with it, you have to know that that is just normal for you. Of course that's happened. It's totally normal. So for example, if you want to drive a G-Wagon, which I do, then I don't focus on the moment that I pick up the keys for my G-Wagon. That's not my main focus. My focus is knowing that I've already got a G-Wagon. Of course I've got a G-Wagon. That's my self-concept. I deserve to drive the car that I want. That's very normal for me. So when I'm driving around in my current car, I already imagine that I'm in that car, because I have to normalise it. And that's what it means to have that self-concept, is to normalise the things that you desire and make them an absolute standard of what you experience in your reality. So a really good way to start working on your self-concept is to find out where it's at the minute. And I like to use the Wheel of Life. If you don't know what that is, there's one on my website, www.sophiewaddington.com. You can download it for free. And it's basically a wheel with different areas of life in there. And what you can do with that wheel is rate where you're at in each of those different areas. And then if you find that one of them is particularly low, which means that you're not enjoying it as much, it's not as fulfilling, it's not where you'd like it to be, think about what is it in that area of your life that is not what you would desire to experience. So go into detail, describe what's going on, get really clear on what that area of life currently looks like for you, and then start to unpick, right, what beliefs am I holding that is causing me to have this experience in this particular area, and start doing some real digging about what could be the underlying belief behind that experience that you're having in that particular area. And once you've identified the belief or the beliefs that are holding you back in that area, what you can do then is create the opposite belief. So you would write down exactly the opposite to the belief that you've had, and you would affirm that and catch yourself thinking the thoughts that align with that old belief, think the new thoughts that align with the new belief. And the most important step is then to take action to provide evidence to your subconscious that this new belief is now true for us. So what that might look like is, I'm just going to give you a random example. Let's say that you want to rewire in a belief that you are somebody who prioritizes your health. Like, let's say that's a belief that you want to rewire into your subconscious. So if you catch yourself thinking, oh, I'm really unfit, I'm not healthy, I'm this, I'm that, and that, you stop that thought, you say, no, that's not true. This is the new thought, this is the new belief. I'm a person who prioritizes my health. And then you quickly go and do something that's small, it doesn't have to be big, that supports that new belief. And the affirmation of the new belief paired with the action that supports it is the quickest way to provide evidence to your subconscious that that is true for you. And when it believes it to be true, because let's say you've thought, I'm a person who prioritizes my health, and then you go for a walk around the block, it could be 5 minutes, then that gives your subconscious some actual evidence that, yeah, that is true. She's right. That does seem to be the case now. So I will accept that as truth, and therefore my self-concept will reflect that back to me. And when it's reflected back, what happens is those actions become easier, and the things that are undesired just dissipate away. They're just fucked off into the distance, and you experience this new result in that area of your life. So going back to relationships, if you have got a belief that is attracting the wrong sort of person towards you, then that will drive you to take action that will support that belief, because the subconscious loves to be right. It wants to be right all the time. So it might be that you put up with people like not texting you back, or you allow people to just ring you when they want to see you but never be available when you want to see them, or whatever it is. It allows you to accept that behaviour. So when you affirm the new belief that actually, no, I have very high standards and this is the only thing that I accept because I'm a high value person, and then you take action, and that action could look like somebody texting you that you've not heard from for 3 weeks, and you then immediately texting them back, like, no, you don't do that anymore. So you just fucking ignore it. And then your subconscious will start to believe like, oh, no, this person is a high value person and they don't accept that kind of shit. So therefore, we will bring forward people who can reflect this new self-concept, people who will text back, people who will make you the priority, people who will ask you, can they see you? Whatever it is. So the work has to be done on the inside. And what people do is try and manipulate the outer reality. So they'll like play games with people, and that's just in a relationship example, but they'll try and manipulate the outside reality. So for example, in business, it might be that they just work longer hours, or they pay for more advertising, or whatever it is. And it still doesn't make any difference. They still get the same results over and over again. And that's because the belief is still in the subconscious that is not supporting this new reality that they desire to experience. So very, very important that you build your self-concept to be mega, mega strong and supportive of the person that you want to be. So I would recommend doing the Wheel of Life thing and also getting really clear on what is your vision for your life. And again, you can use that Wheel of Life to prompt you in thinking, what would I like to experience in this reality? And then ask yourself, what does that version of me who is already experiencing those results that I desire, what does she or he think about themselves? What do they believe to be true for them? What thoughts are going through their minds all the time? What evidence do they provide to the subconscious that that is true? Like, what actions are they taking? And do those things, think those thoughts, take those actions. And before very long, like literally, it can happen as soon as you allow it to, you will experience a new reality being reflected to you. And that can even be in the same relationship that you are in, or in the same business that you're in, or whatever the situation is. It can stay as that particular situation or that particular person, but you experience it in a new way. So let's say that you always get overlooked for jobs. That's because you think that you are not capable of getting that promotion or whatever it is at work. When you rewire that belief to be, actually, I'm a really valuable member of the team, I have great ideas, I'm very hardworking, I would be the perfect person to get that job, then you'll start seeing that people are almost like coming to you with the opportunity, saying, why don't you apply for this job? We've already earmarked you for it. Like, this is what you could have. So you'll see it immediately reflected. Don't think that any scenario that you're in, any situation, is fixed as it is. I know people who have got like a really shitty job that they're in, but they feel like they don't want to leave it for one reason or another, who have turned it around through the way that they think about themselves, and they've got much better treatment from the workplace, or they've got much better treatment from the partner that they're with. So you can change your experience through your thoughts and your beliefs, and that is what it means to build a really, really strong self-concept. So go away and do those things. Get the Wheel of Life off the website. First of all, go through it and decide which areas are the weakest. Write down, what is it that you are currently experiencing that you don't desire to experience anymore? Unpick, why is that happening? What are the beliefs that I hold in my subconscious? Rewrite them to be the opposite. Affirm them. Take the action, just a small thing straight after thinking it, to prove to your subconscious that this is now true, and watch it all change for the better so fast you wouldn't believe. As soon as you do the work on your self-concept, you will stop experiencing those shitty circumstances. I can guarantee it. Hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Let me know what you think. Send me a DM, message me in the private Facebook community, and leave me a review if you've enjoyed it. I'd be very grateful for it, and I will put you into this quarter's draw for a free 1-to-1. So I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope that you come back for episode 102 feeling like a bad bitch and knowing exactly what you deserve and not accepting anything less. And I will see you next week. See you later.